Yes. Good afternoon, students. Today we are going to discuss the another important method in the plant breeding. In the last lecture, we have discussed that there are four principal methods which are used worldwide for the crop improvement. The first method is the plant introduction and acclimatization. Second method is the selection. Third one Third one is the hybridization, and the fourth method, it is considered as the most advanced method for the crop improvement, and it is called as the mutation breeding. Okay, four principal methods used to improve the crop. Of these four method, we have discussed the one method plant we have discussed the one method, and that was the domestication, plant introduction and acclimatization in the last lecture. And today we are going to discuss the second method of crop improvement, and this is the selection method. Okay, there are various selection methods used in the plant breeding for the improvement of the agricultural crops. Okay, we have discussed the domestication. Domestication means bringing the wild weedy species under the human management is as the domestication. Okay, then also we have discussed the plant introduction. Plant introduction means transfer of a plant from their original locality to the new locality having different climatic condition is called as the plant introduction. Okay, and acclimatization, it follows the plant introduction. Whenever the plant it is introduced, whenever the plant when it is transferred from one locality to the another locality having the different climatic conditions, the crop or that plant, it should be get adapted, it should be get adjusted to the new climatic condition. Okay, and the process of adjustment or adaptation of the plant to the new climatic condition is called as the acclimatization. Okay, in the last lecture we have discussed in detail regarding the domestication, plant introduction and acclimatization. Okay, and that was the first method in the plant breeding. Now in today's lecture we are going to discuss regarding the selection methods in the plant breeding. Selection methods in the plant breeding. Selection methods in the plant breeding. First of all, what is mean by selection? First of all, we are going to discuss the definition of the selection. Selection means identification and isolation of plants with the desirable characters. It is called as the selection. Okay, this is the definition of selection: identification and isolation of plants with desirable character is called as the selection. Primitive man had never sown the seeds to ensure the first crop, but to have the crop in the next season, he must have obtained the seeds from the first crop. Okay, the crop improvement process, it was began along with the agriculture, and agriculture was started when the nomad man changed his lifestyle to the agriculturist. Okay, then the primitive man had never sown the seeds to ensure the first crop, but to have the crop in the next season, he had obtained the seeds from the first crop. Okay, and unconsciously, or we can say the unknowingly, the primitive man have practiced the selection. Okay, he must have selected the certain type of the plant depending upon the need, depending upon their need. That is, he must have selected the plants for the different plant parts, and unknowingly the selection might have practiced. Okay, just that is how the selection of the crop plant was started. Okay, and therefore it is considered the selection as the oldest breeding method, and it is considered as the basis of all crop improvement. ओके, लक्षात आलं का? एकदम सोपं म्हणजे इम्प्रुव्हमेंटची प्रोसेस कधी चालू झाली, तर जेव्हा पहिल्यांदा जो आदिवासी म्हणा किंवा जो पहिल्यांदा जो होता, जो टोळी करून राहत होता, त्यावेळेला त्यांच्या नीडनुसार त्यांनी काही प्लांट सिलेक्ट केले आणि त्याचे सीड्स कलेक्ट केले. ओके. आणि सीड्स कलेक्ट केले आणि पुढच्या सीझनमध्ये त्यांना ते क्रॉप हवं होतं त्यांच्या नीडनुसार. त्यामुळे त्यांनी त्याची सोईंग केली. आणि तसं काय झालं, तर ॲग्रीकल्चर पॅटर्न हा अस्तित्वात आला. ओके. आणि मग हे ॲग्रीकल्चरसाठी त्यांनी काय केलं, की काही जे नैसर्गिकरित्या नॅचरली जे क्रॉप वाढत होते त्यांच्या नीडनुसार काय केलं, तर त्या क्रॉपचं त्यांनी सिलेक्शन करून त्याचे सीड्स त्यांनी कलेक्ट केले. अँड दॅट इज हाऊ द ॲग्रीकल्चर वॉज स्टार्टेड अँड दॅट इज हाऊ unknowingly the primitive man practiced the process of selection. Okay. The agriculture, it was started when the nomad man changed his lifestyle to the agriculturist. Okay, primitive man had never sown the seeds to ensure the first crop, but to have the crop in the next season, he must have obtained the seeds from the first crop as per their need. And for this, unknowingly, the primitive man carried out the selection process. And therefore, the selection is considered as the oldest breeding method and is the basis of all crop improvement. Okay, in the examination, in the theory examination, the MCQ may be asked the oldest breeding method, oldest crop improvement method is. Options may be plant introduction, then selection, domestication, and the fertilization. And the correct answer, it will be the selection. After selection, the domestication was carried out. Okay, that is how the agriculture was started. That's why the selection is considered as the oldest breeding method and it is the basis of all crop improvement. Okay. Then there are two types of the selection. The first one is the natural selection and the another one is the artificial selection. Okay, remember here the question may be asked for the MCQ. The oldest breeding method, the oldest breeding method is selection. ओके. सगळ्यात जुनी मेथड ही कोणती आहे, तर सिलेक्शन आहे. त्याच्यानंतर कोणती आहे, तर डोमेस्टिकेशन आहे. सिलेक्शन इज द करेक्ट आन्सर. Okay. Therefore, the oldest breeding method and is the basis of all crop improvement. There are two types of selection. The first one is the natural selection and the second one is the artificial selection. Okay. Here, the first one, the natural selection, as you know, it is the rule of nature and resulted in evolution. Okay. That is all you know, the rule given by the Darwin, the survival of the fittest, or survival of the fittest, that is the fittest species gets survived. But this is not the appropriate, because it should be appropriately described as the species plants or animals which have the capacity or which get adapted to the changing environmental condition. Only those species get survived and the other species get wiped out. Okay, that is the natural selection. The species which get adapted to the changing environmental conditions, only these species get survived and the other species get wiped out. ओके. म्हणजे आपण असं म्हणतो की सर्वायवल ऑफ द फिटेस्ट, म्हणजे जो फिट आहे तो तग धरून राहतो, जो स्ट्रॉंगर आहे. त्याचा मिनिंग असा होतो वर्ड टू वर्ड की बाबा जो स्ट्रॉंगर आहे तो सर्व्हाइव्ह होतो. पण असं काही नसतं. जो स्ट्रॉंगर आहे तो सर्व्हाइव्ह होत नाही. तर जो चेंजिंग एन्व्हायरमेंटल कंडिशनला अडॅप्ट करून घेऊ शकतो तोच सर्व्हाइव्ह होऊ शकतो. ओके. दॅट इज द ॲक्च्युअल थेरी. Natural selection, it is the rule of nature and it is resulted in evolution. Plants which survive through the adversities of nature are preferred and the weaker ones are wiped out. Here you can see that is plants, that is which can survive through the adversities, or the plants which get adapted to the changing environmental conditions, that is these are preferred, and the weaker plants, that is the plants which cannot get adapted to the changing environmental conditions, these are wiped out. And thus nature itself select the fittest organisms. Okay, nature is the principal force which is responsible for the selection. Okay, it remains always operating in the nature without the human interference. It remains natural selection, it remains always operating in the nature without human interference. Then it is one of the natural factors which creates variations in the already existing varieties of the crop. And the natural selection, it is the basis of artificial selection and the hybridization. Okay, natural selection means what? The survival of the fittest. That survival of the fittest, which we can say that, or which we can describe as the species which get adapted to the changing environmental condition get survived, and the weaker species get wiped out. Okay, the natural selection, it is the rule of nature and it is resulted in the evolution. Okay, and due to the natural selection, the genetic variation is created in the different types of the plants, and this genetic variation is the basis for the artificial selection. Okay, it is continuously operating in the nature without any human interference. It is one of the natural factors which creates variation in already existing varieties of the crop, and it is the basis of artificial selection and hybridization. Then the second method of selection, it is the artificial selection. Artificial selection, it can be defined as to choose certain individual plants for the purpose of having better crop from a mixed population where the individuals differ in the character. ओके, आर्टिफिशियल सिलेक्शन म्हणजे काय? समजा आपल्याला जर आपण एका फार्मवरती गेलो, एका फील्डवरती गेलो आणि आपल्याला जर चांगले प्लांट सिलेक्ट करायचे असतील, तर आपण काय करणार आहे? ज्यांची उंची जास्त आहे, ज्याला ग्रेन्स जास्त आहेत, इल्ड आहे, ज्याच्यावरती कुठल्या प्रकारचा डिसीज पडलेला नाही, त्याच्यावरती कुठले इन्सेक्ट नाहीत, असे काय करतो? तर चांगले प्लांट आपण सिलेक्ट करून घेतो. दॅट इज वी कॉल्ड इट ॲज ए आर्टिफिशियल सिलेक्शन. Okay, artificial selection means what? It can be defined as to choose the certain individual plants for the purpose of having better crop from a mixed population where the individuals differ in their character. Okay, that is we call it as a artificial selection. Okay, and here the selecting agent is man. Okay, so here the selecting agent is the human being. Okay, we have discussed the natural selection where the natural nature is the principal force for the selection, and here the selection is carried out by the man. Okay, that's why it is called as the artificial selection. There are three methods of artificial selections we are going to discuss in this lecture. The first one is the mass selection, another one pure line selection, and the third one is the clonal selection. Okay, three methods of the artificial selections are: the first one is the mass selection, second one is the pure line selection, and the third one is the clonal selection. Okay, artificial selection, there are two types of selections. The first one is the natural selection, which is carried out by the nature, and the second one, artificial selection, the selection which is carried out by the man or human being. There are three types of artificial selection. The first one is the mass selection, second one is the pure line selection, and the third one is the clonal selections. Okay, we will discuss these three types of the selection in detail one by one. Okay, and today we are going to discuss the first method of artificial selection. It is the mass selection. Okay, mass selection, it is the first method in the artificial selections. Here, the mass selection is considered as the most simplest, oldest, and most common method of crop improvement. Okay, the mass selection, it is referred as the simplest, oldest, and the most common method of crop improvement. Okay, then this method, it is having the considerable importance to the farmers. It is having the considerable importance to the farmers who wish to improve their crop but these farmers are not having any knowledge regarding the inheritance of characters. Okay, the farmers, that is, not have the any knowledge how the characters are inherited from one generation to the another generation. Okay, and this method is does not require any knowledge how the characters are inherited, how the characters are transferred from one generation to the another generation. And that's why this method, it is having the considerable importance to the farmers. ओके, ही मेथड काय फार्मर्ससाठी एकदम महत्वाची आहे. फार्मर्स ही इझिली त्यांच्या शेतामध्ये हे कॅरीड आउट करत असतात. त्याच्यामुळे ही मेथड एकदम महत्वाची आहे. आणि या मेथडमध्ये तुम्हाला कॅरेक्टर्स म्हणजे प्लांट्सचे जे महत्वाचे कॅरेक्टर्स आहेत ते एका जनरेशन मधून दुसऱ्या जनरेशन मध्ये कसे पास होतात, कसे इनहेरिट होतात, याचा नॉलेज असण्याची काहीही गरज नाही. त्याच्यामुळे काय तर हे फार्मर्स आरामात ही मेथड त्यांच्या शेतामध्ये यूज करून नवीन क्रॉप व्हरायटी ते तयार करू शकतात. Okay, the mass selection, it is the simplest, oldest, and the most common method of crop improvement. Okay, this method is having considerable importance to the farmer who wish to improve their, but they are not having any knowledge regarding the inheritance of character. Okay, farmers does not know how the characters are actually transferred from one generation to the another generation. Okay, this method, it consists of different activities. The first one, picking the elite plant, or we can say plants or the vigorous plants. Okay, picking the vigorous plants from the field population and their harvesting. Okay, this is the first activity, picking the elite plants, that is the group of vigorous and healthy plants. Okay, the first of all we have to select the vigorous and healthy plants from the mixed population, and after the selection we have to harvest the plants. In the second activity, the seeds are collected after the harvesting in masses. Okay, large number of the seeds are collected from the these elite group of plants, these vigorous plants, and all the seeds which are collected, these are bulked together or composited together. ओके, म्हणजे काय करायचंय तर मिक्स्ड पॉप्युलेशन फील्ड वरती गेल्यानंतर हार्वेस्टिंगच्या वेळेस एकदम इलाइट प्लांट्स म्हणजे एकदम चांगले प्लांट ज्याच्यावरती डिसीज पडलेला नाही, त्याचे ग्रेन्सचा साईज चांगला आहे, ठीक आहे, असे प्लांट्स आपल्याला चांगले सगळे सिलेक्ट करायचे विगरस आणि हेल्दी, त्यांचं हार्वेस्टिंग करायचंय आणि त्या सगळ्या प्लांट्सचे सीड्स कलेक्ट करायचे आणि ते मिक्स करायचे. दीज आर बल्कड टुगेदर. देन द थर्ड वन, द सीड्स विच आर बल्कड टुगेदर, these are sown in the field to raise the crop. These are, 1 minute. Yes, the seeds which are collected and which are bulked together, these are preserved, and then these seeds sown in the field to raise the crop in the next season. Okay, and that process, it is repeated till the plant shows the uniformity in the desired characters and constitute the new variety. Okay, that process, that is the picking the elite plants, then their harvesting, their seeds are collected, these are bulked together, these are sown in the field, and then the sown in the field. Okay, and that process, it is repeated for several years, and once the uniformity in the character is obtained, the these crops will be released as the new variety. ओके, म्हणजे एकदम सिंपल आहे. समजा जर फार्मर्स काय करत असतील, फार्मर्स त्यांच्या प्लांटचं ऑब्झर्वेशन करून काय करतात, तर त्यांच्यामध्ये जे चांगले प्लांट त्यांना वाटतात, म्हणजे जे हेल्दी प्लांट आहेत, ज्याच्यावरती कुठल्याही प्रकारचे इन्सेक्ट नाहीत, कुठल्याही प्रकारचे डिसिजेस नाहीत, पेस्ट नाहीत, कुठल्याही प्रकारचा रोग पडलेला नाही त्याच्यावरती, त्यांची उंची जास्त आहे, त्याचे पानं वगैरे छान आहेत, ज्याचे फ्लावरिंग जास्त आहे, ज्याच्यामध्ये ग्रेन चांगले तयार झालेले आहेत, ग्रेन्सची साईज चांगली आहे, असे सगळे प्लांट्स ते सिलेक्ट करतात. त्याचं हार्वेस्टिंग करतात आणि त्याचे सगळे सीड्स असे खूप सारे प्लांट सिलेक्ट करतात आणि त्याचे सगळे सीड्स ते कलेक्ट करून स्वतःजवळ ठेवतात आणि काय करतात नेक्स्ट सीझन मध्ये त्याचं सोईंग करतात जेणेकरून त्याच्यापासून त्यांना चांगले प्लांट भेटतील. ठीक आहे. असं काय होतं जनरेशन आफ्टर जनरेशन करत गेल्यानंतर ते क्रॉप इम्प्रूव्ह होतं आणि एक नवीन व्हरायटी म्हणून त्या क्रॉपला आपण रिलीज करू शकतो. अँड दॅट सिम्पल प्रोसेस इज कॉल्ड ॲज द mass selection. Okay, mass selection, it is the simplest, oldest and the most common method of the crop improvement. It is having the considerable importance to the farmer who wish to improve their crop but not have any knowledge regarding the inheritance of character. Okay, the mass selection process, it involves the different steps like the picking the elite group of plants, the plants which are vigorous and healthy. These large number of the plants are selected from the field population and then these are harvested. Okay, the seeds from these plants, these are collected and these are bulked together. Okay, and these seeds are preserved and these are used for sowing to raise the crop in the next season. Okay, the process, it is repeated till the plant shows the uniformity in the desired characters and that will constitute the new variety. This process is called as the mass selection. Then the procedure, that is how actually we have briefly discussed the different steps in the mass selection. But how actually the mass selection is carried out on the field? Generally, the mass selection it is practiced in the cross-pollinated crops to constitute the new variety. Okay, that generally this method mass selection it is used to improve the cross pollinated crops. Okay, it is generally practiced in the cross pollinated crops to constitute the new variety. Okay, the question may be asked, MCQ may be asked, the mass selection it is carried out in the improvement of the cross pollinated crops. Okay, remember, don't forget it. The mass selection is the method which is generally practiced in cross pollinated crops to constitute the new variety. Okay, why it is practiced in cross pollinated variety mostly? We will discuss it while discussing the merits and the demerits of the process. Just today, only remember that the mass selection method it is generally practiced in the cross pollinated crops to constitute a new variety. Generally, the mass selection method it takes about 8 years, okay, to develop a new variety. The process it may be the process it may be modified as per the need of the program. Okay, but general sense it requires about 10 about 8 years, sorry, it requires about 8 years to release the new variety by using the mass selection method. But this method or the procedure it may be modified as per the need. Okay, as per the need. Okay, in the first year, okay, we are discussing how to develop the new variety in the cross pollinated crop by using the mass selection method. Okay, it takes about 8 years. We are discussing the activities which are carried out in the first year. Okay, the activities which are carried out in the first year. Okay, the most important thing, the number of plants selected. The most important thing, how many number of plants must should be selected for the process. Okay, as far as possible, the large number of plants must be selected to carry out the process. Okay, the large number of phenotypically similar plants are selected. Okay, the different activities in the first year, the large number of phenotypically similar plants are selected. These are harvested, these are threshed, and the seeds of these plants are composited and preserved to raise the crop in the next season. Okay, these are the activities which are carried out in the first year. Okay, I am repeating this one. The large number of phenotypically similar plants are selected. These are harvested. These are threshed. Their seeds are collected. These are composited to. These are preserved to raise the crop in the next season. ओके, म्हणजे पहिल्या वर्षामध्ये आपल्याला काय करायचंय, तर फक्त खूप सारे फिनोटायपिकली जे सिमिलर प्लांट्स आहेत ते तुम्हाला सिलेक्ट करायचे आहेत. त्याचं हार्वेस्टिंग करायचं आहे. पोस्ट हार्वेस्टिंग म्हणजे त्याचं थ्रेशिंग वगैरे करून त्याचे सीड्स कलेक्ट करायचे. ते सगळे सीड्स एकत्र मिक्स करून ठेवायचे आहेत, जेणेकरून ते तुम्हाला सोईंगसाठी सेकंड इयर मध्ये वापरता येईल. Okay, these are the activities which are carried out in the first year. Then these are the some points that is which are very important or which are considered while during the first year process. Okay, the first one, the number of plants selected. Number of plants selected, as far as the large number of the plants must be selected. Okay, the several hundred plants are selected, several hundred or more appears to be desirable if the conditions are favorable. If the conditions are favorable means if the field is available, if the funds and facilities are available, then then the large number of the plants should be, or the several hundreds of the plants must be selected. The selection of too less number of plants should be avoided. ओके, म्हणजे जास्तीत जास्त जेवढे प्लांट सिलेक्ट करता येईल तेवढे प्लांट सिलेक्ट करायचा प्रयत्न करायचा आहे. कमीत कमी प्लांट सिलेक्ट करायचं शक्यतो टाळायचं असतं. ओके, सिलेक्शन ऑफ टू लेस प्लांट्स शुड बी अवॉइडेड. ओके, सिलेक्शन ऑफ two less plants should be avoided. The number of plants selected depending upon the facilities available. Okay, number of plants selected depending upon the facilities available. That is how the number of plants are selected. As far as possible, the large number of the plants should be selected. Selection of two less plants should be avoided. Okay, and the number of plants selected, it is depending upon the funds and facilities available. Okay, then second point here, from where the selection is carried out. It is simple. The selection is simply carried out from the farmer's field where the mixed population of the crop is present. Okay, the selection is carried out from the local crop from farmer's field where unimproved varieties are grown. Okay, from where the selection is carried out, the selection it is carried out from the local crop from farmers field where unimproved varieties are grown. Then here the third point is unit of selection. Unit of selection, the selection it is entirely depends, the selection it is entirely depends on the phenotypic characters. Okay, how the selection is carried out, the selection it is entirely depending upon the phenotypic, or we can say the morphological characters which can be easily seen with the naked eyes. ओके, म्हणजे आपण उघड्या डोळ्यांनी आरामामध्ये हे कॅरेक्टर्स आपण त्याचे ऑब्झर्व करू शकतो, असेच शक्यतो प्लांट्स हे सिलेक्ट केले जातात. That is the unit of selection. Selection it is entirely depends upon the phenotypic characters or the morphological characters which can be easily seen with the naked eyes. For example, appearance of the plant, then color, weight, maturity, drought or winter hardiness, resistance to diseases, then resistance to different types of insect and pest, lodging, yield, and quality. Okay, these are the different types of the morphological or phenotypic characters which are taken into the consideration for the selection in the first year. Okay, selection it is completely dependent upon the phenotypic characters like the appearance, color, weight, maturity, drought or winter hardiness, resistance to diseases, insect pest, insect pest, lodging, yield, quality. Okay, the selection, then this is the, just we have discussed the unit of selection. Now the fourth one, the time of selection. Time of selection, the selection is carried out at the time of harvesting. Okay, the selection of the plants with the desirable characters, it is carried out at the time of harvesting. Why the selection is carried out at the harvesting? Because only at this stage that their yield and other quality attributes can be properly judged. Okay, time of selection, generally the selection is carried out at the time of harvesting, because only at that time their yield and other quality attributes can be properly judged. That's why the selection is carried out at the time of harvesting. Okay, and the last step in this one, that is the harvesting and collection of the seeds. After the selection in the first year, the harvesting and the collection of the seed is carried out. Okay, then the for the selection, generally the field, it is divided into the different compartments, different equal compartments. Say we can say the 10 square feet, that is particularly it is carried out to eliminate the effect of variability in the soil. ओके, म्हणजे काय करतो, जर सिलेक्शन करायचं असेल तर आपण काय करतो, शेताचा भाग खूप मोठा असतो. ठीक आहे, म्हणजे आपण एकाच कोपऱ्यामध्ये किंवा एकाच साईडला फक्त सिलेक्शन कॅरीड आउट करायचं नाही. तर काय करायचंय, शेताच्या सगळा जो भाग, प्रत्येक भागातले चांगले प्लांट आपल्याला सिलेक्ट करायचे. ओके, म्हणजे आपण कंपार्टमेंट मध्ये त्याचं डिवाइड करतो आणि प्रत्येक कंपार्टमेंट मधून ते चांगले प्लांट आपण सिलेक्ट करत असतो. अँड दॅट्स वाय द मास सिलेक्शन मेथड, इट इज ऑल्सो रेफर्ड ॲज द compartmental selection. Okay, that is during carried out during the selection, generally the field, it is divided into the equal sized compartments, says the 10 square feet, and the selection is carried out from each of the compartment, and that's why the mass selection, it is called as the compartmental selection. Okay, that may be asked the MCQ. Okay, compartmental selection, mass selection is referred as the compartmental selection. Okay, that is, these are the activities which are carried out in the first year. In the first year, simple activities like the selection of the plant is carried out depending upon their phenotypic characters. Large number of the plants are selected, then these plants are harvested, these are threshed, and their seeds are collected, these are preserved to raise the crop in the next year. Okay, these are the activities which are carried out in the first year. Okay, then in the second year, then second year, that is, these are referred as the preliminary yield trials. Okay, second year preliminary yield trials are carried out. Okay, generally the seeds, these are sown in the field along with the existing varieties, and these existing varieties are called as the checks. ओके, सेकंड इयर मध्ये काय करतात, जे आपण पहिल्या वर्षी जे सीड्स कलेक्ट केलेले आहेत त्याचे फील्ड मध्ये त्याचं सोईंग करतात, आणि त्याच्या बाजूने कशाचं सोईंग करतात, तर सध्या जी सुपिरियर व्हरायटी अवेलेबल आहे त्याचं सोईंग करतात. हे कशासाठी आहे, तुम्हाला तिथल्या तिथं त्या प्लांट बरोबर सध्याच्या एक्झिस्टिंग सुपिरियर व्हरायटी बरोबर त्याला तुम्हाला कंपॅरिझन करता यावं म्हणून त्याच्या परफॉर्मन्सचा. त्यामुळे त्या सुपिरियर व्हरायटीला काय म्हणतो आपण, चेक्स. Okay, in the second year preliminary yield trials are carried out. The composited seeds, the seeds which are composited in the first year, these are sown in the field along with the existing superior variety, and these existing superior varieties are called as the checks, and this is done for the comparison. Okay, the plants, these are allowed to self or cross pollinated naturally, then observations are taken similarly which are taken in the first year. ओके, म्हणजे पहिल्या वर्षामध्ये जसं आपण सिलेक्शन कॅरीड आउट केलं होतं, चांगले प्लांट ज्याच्यावरती म्हणजे डिपेंडिंग अपॉन देअर अपिअरन्स, कलर, हाईट, देन इल्ड. ओके, या सगळे कॅरेक्टर्स यूज करून पुन्हा काय केलं जातं इन द सेकंड इयर, द सिलेक्शन इज कॅरीड आउट, द बेस्ट परफॉर्मर्स, okay, the best performers are kept and the others are discarded. Okay, in the second year the preliminary yield trials are carried out. The composited seeds, the seeds which are composited in the first year, these are sown in the field along with the existing superior variety. The existing superior varieties are called as the checks, and this is done for the comparison. Okay, the plants which show the performance over their checks, these are selected, best performers are selected and the others are discarded in the second year. Here also the selection, it is carried out depending upon the phenotypic character. Okay, this is about the activities which are carried out in the second year. Okay, then in the third to fifth year the main yield trials are carried out. Okay, in the third to fifth year main yield trials are carried out. Okay, here also the performance, it is compared with the existing superior variety called as the checks. ओके, म्हणजे इथे सुद्धा काय करतात, सेकंड इयर मध्ये जे सीड्स कलेक्ट केलेले असतात ते त्याचं थर्ड टू फिफ्थ इयर मध्ये फक्त तीच प्रोसेस फॉलो करतात, त्याचं सोईंग करतात अलॉंग विथ द एक्झिस्टिंग सुपिरियर व्हरायटी. ओके, त्याच्याबरोबर त्याचं कम्पेअर करतात आणि जे प्लांट्स चांगला परफॉर्म करतात सध्याच्या व्हरायटीपेक्षा फक्त तेच ठेवले जातात आणि बाकीचे काय काढून टाकले जातात. असं 3 जनरेशन पर्यंत केलं जातं, थर्ड, फोर्थ अँड द फिफ्थ. Okay, in the for 3 generations, that is third, fourth and the fifth, the main yield trials are carried out. Here third, fourth and the fifth main yield trials are carried out. The performance, it is compared with the checks, that is the existing superior varieties. Best performers are kept and the others are discarded. Okay, that is how the main yield trials are carried out. Okay, then here you can see the sixth year to eighth year. Okay, for 3 generation the trials of the cultivators holding or the experimental farm or the regional research stations are conducted. Okay, for 3 generation, sixth, seventh and the eighth year trials on cultivators holding or experimental farms or regional research stations. These are conducted to determine the adaptability of strains in the different region. Okay, that means the seeds of the best performers in the fifth generation, these are collected and these are then provided to the different experimental stations or the progressive farmers in the different regions. म्हणजे वेगवेगळ्या रिजन मध्ये, वेगवेगळ्या क्लायमॅटिक कंडिशन मध्ये, वेगवेगळ्या रिजन म्हणजे काय, की समजा मराठवाडा आहे, कोकण आहे, पश्चिम महाराष्ट्र आहे, या वेगवेगळ्या रिजन मध्ये जे एक्सपेरिमेंटल स्टेशन्स असतील किंवा ॲग्रिकल्चर कॉलेजेस असतील किंवा जे प्रोग्रेसिव्ह फार्मर्स असतील, त्यांना काय केले जातात, हे 5व्या जनरेशनचे सीड्स हे प्रोव्हाइड केले जातात आणि जवळपास 3 वर्ष त्यांचा परफॉर्मन्स हा ह्या एक्झिस्टिंग सुपिरियर व्हरायटी बरोबर चेक केला जातो. त्यांची त्या नवीन एन्व्हायरमेंटल कंडिशनमध्ये ॲडॅप्टिबिलिटी चेक केली जाते, की ते बाबा ॲडॅप्ट होतात का वेगवेगळ्या वायडर कंडिशन्समध्ये. Okay, these are the activities which are carried out in the sixth year to the eighth year. Okay, the trials on the cultivators holding or the experimental farm or the regional stations, generally to determine the adaptability, whether these strains get adapted to the wider environmental conditions or not. Okay, and later on in the eighth year, in the eighth year the variety produced, in the eighth year the variety produced and named, their seeds are multiplied and distributed to the farmers. Okay, in the eighth year the in the eighth year for the 3 generation, about for about sixth generation, then seventh and the eighth generation. For about 3 years, their performance it is evaluated, and the details are sent to the plant breeder. Then the plant breeder evaluate the one or two strains which gave the performance better than that of the existing variety, and later on in the 8th year he release the new variety, he gives the new name, their seeds are multiplied in the 8th year, and these are then distributed to the farmers. And that is how the new improved variety it is released by using the mass selection method. ओके, लक्षात आलं. म्हणजे 3 जनरेशन पर्यंत काय केलं जातं, 6व्या 7व्या आणि 8व्या जनरेशन मध्ये वेगवेगळ्या रिजनल स्टेशनला, वेगवेगळ्या एक्सपेरिमेंटल स्टेशनवरती त्याची अडॅप्टिबिलिटी चेक केली जाते, परफॉर्मन्स चेक केला जातो, आणि या सगळ्या स्ट्रेनचा परफॉर्मन्स हा प्लांट ब्रीडरला कळवला जातो. मग प्लांट ब्रीडर त्याचा सगळा परफॉर्मन्स त्या एक्झिस्टिंग सुपिरियर व्हरायटीच्या परफॉर्मन्स बरोबर कम्पेअर करतो, आणि जे 2 किंवा 3 स्ट्रेन हे एक्झिस्टिंग सुपिरियर व्हरायटीपेक्षा चांगला परफॉर्म करतात, ते 2 किंवा 3 स्ट्रेन हे नवीन व्हरायटी म्हणून रिलीज केले जातात. Okay, and that new variety it is then named, it is then the seeds of these strain, these are multiplied, and the seeds these are distributed to the farmers for the commercial cultivation. Okay, that is the whole process of the mass selection. Mass selection method it is used to improve the cross pollinated crops. Okay, it is mainly practiced to improve the cross pollinated crop, or we can say to release the new improved variety in the cross pollinated crop. It takes about 8 years to release the new variety in the cross pollinated crop. Okay, and we have discussed in detail how actually the process for, or how actually the field technique for mass selection is practiced. Okay, I think this is enough for today. Discuss the different methods